and Mr. Drescher, since that means you would be sitting in. Okay. Thanks.
All right, so thank you for the opportunity to come back after our first discussion. I anticipated our first discussion would be kind of a high level, maybe a 15-minute briefing. Given how far we got on the discussion, I've asked Mr. Salato to join me tonight because my knowledge of architecture, engineering, zoning, and code is very limited to my experience coming before boards and asking for things just like this, but typically having a professional beside me that I can defer to. So I will invoke that right often tonight, if that's okay. After our last meeting, the board requested some additional detail on property layout and vision, and we've provided what we think shows additional detail on inventory layout, also buffering, and kind of where we see the need coming from to have this additional space. So I imagine after your review, this is now the point where you have additional questions that I would be glad to entertain.
Okay. We got a couple of project leads just on this one, and that was Mr. McPartland, right? As agreed to be a project lead. We signed project leads, and that they tried to, put a little bit of extra effort on that one project, focus on it a bit, and help lead the discussion. But we're not that deep into this right now. But anytime, Mr. McPartland, if you have anything or any questions, please just chime on in, okay?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead. Do you have anything, Mr. McPartland, right now?
After you, Mr. Chairman.
I really don't have anything. I mean, the bottom line,
Okay.
here is the properties and, in the proposal, and as the applicant mentioned, and as we know at the last meeting, this is a neighborhood commercial. It's in the town of Niskayuna, across the street, actually, a kind of property line. If you look at like Zillow or something, you can see where county kind of cuts through there. So part of, like, I believe behind the reconditioning center, not far from behind there, that town of county line comes through there also. So these are the three properties. There's two homes, and then there's one empty lot. I don't know if that's owned by one of the homeowners or if it's a separate owner.
It is.
So there's
It is.
two
So
owners.
Three properties, two
And
owners.
two owners.
Yes.
Okay. And that's really, that's all I've got right now. I know that the drawing that has been updated looks like you're increasing the buffer around the residences from the original proposal. I mean, again, it's not a detail.
Correct.
I mean, if we get that far, we'll get into specifics regarding, planning some kind of shielding to protect the neighbors that are along Amherst. Yep.
Did you have a meeting with those neighbors?
I was actually, you took the words right out of my mouth. So since our last meeting, I didn't have a meeting per se, but, and I can provide you a copy of the letter. A letter was delivered to each of the houses all the way down Amherst, even unaffected homes that were further down, just out of respect as to how people might perceive their proximity to the project. So a letter went out explaining to them what we were intending to do. A picture, this picture was provided to them saying this is what we're committing to as far as it's going to be a new vehicle inventory lot. It's going to be properly lit to respect the fact that there's a residence adjacent to it. It's going to be properly buffered. And so I provided them my direct communication to me to reach out to me with any questions or concerns, as we like to be proactive in these situations. That's been out for over a week, and I've got nothing to date. I didn't know if maybe someone was going to show up tonight and speak because they received that letter. I didn't hear anybody bring that up. Additionally, the house, the final remaining house on Fagan, just based on the concerns of isolation from the last meeting, that a letter went to that homeowner as well, explaining what we were doing and that we would absolutely entertain including them in this consideration. The reason we didn't had nothing to do with isolating that house, but moving through the process and making sure that we had something that was viable before continuing. Just for clarity, the 17 South Fagan, that property, there was conversations and communication on a potential transition prior to our arrival. So that was rekindled by the homeowner to us, which seemed like a great opportunity. That homeowner said, hey, I have a property that's zoned that you guys could use, that Mr. Fusilla wanted to use. Do you want to continue that conversation? We did continue that conversation. That homeowner then went to his neighbor and said, would you consider as well if they wanted more property? That homeowner then came to us. We're under contract on both of those, contingent on approvals, which is what led us here. Our action now to reach out to the last homeowner was just based on the fact that we don't want to leave that person out. Obviously, it benefits us in a lot of ways, but certainly it adds another home to the list of.
Okay, so you did reach out to that?
Yes.
And have you heard back from them?
We have not.
And to reach out there to make it clear, is a consideration of purchasing that property, correct?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Letting that person know that we are under contract on the first two,
Yeah.
that we're going through the approval process, and if they have a desire to contract with us, to let us know.
Is there, you may not hear back. Is there a plan to just, give them another opportunity, whether
Yes.
knocking on doors or whatever, just to
Yeah,
keep you?
I want to try to figure out how to do that professionally and tactfully. The letter that went to that individual came directly from Rob Matthews. The letter on South Amherst came from me because I'm in this market more often. And if people wanted to come over to the dealership and walk and talk, I was going to be willing to do that.
Yep, and I appreciate that.
So just for my own confirmation, the two brick homes, right? The first brick home going south, and
17.
the second is a brick home too. Okay, let's.
I would be lying if I told you that. I know the first one's a brick home just because I'm.
And then the next one, and then the third one is the one you said the letter to.
Correct. So it's 17 is the brick home that
Yep.
you're talking about.
Yep.
25 is a vacant lot.
Yep.
33 is a residential home, and then 41 is the one we approached. And then after 41 is already a commercial automotive or auto
The
interiors.
commercial, and then the corner one it's got 4 garages, but it looks
It's
residential.
actually, no, the fourth one on the corner is the same company. Auto Interiors is
Okay.
both of those.
Okay.
One is a storage warehouse and one is operations.
Do you know how long, well, first of all, are either of those homes vacant at this time?
So 17 is vacant. And I don't know, what's public knowledge or what's not public knowledge, but there's a desire to have no association with that home anymore from the current owner. It's a tragedy how it became vacant.
I see.
And it's
That's 17, and then
17, and I would say, with all due respect, 17 is in enough disrepair that if looked at by the town, that might actually,
yeah, I was going to request a walkthrough
Yeah.
on some of these if
Yep.
they were in that situation.
correct. 17, definitely in that situation. 25 is vacant. 33, I don't know. There is someone living in 33 and a desire for that person to join into the sale.
Mhm.
Laura, we don't have any historic property issues here, right? That we'd have to.
I don't know of any historic property issues. I do feel like this is one of the only affordable home neighborhoods we have in Niskayuna. And so I'll say it again, I'm very concerned about losing affordable homes in Niskayuna, and we don't have a lot of them. But I don't believe that either of those are historic. I'll double check for you.
And unlike many homes in this unit, they have ready access to a bus line.
That's also true.
All right, the value of this neighborhood is real. I do want to better understand the condition, the homes in it, how much money it would take to get it livable, if it's indeed not livable. So to try to get a sense of whether we're continuing to have a vacant property on a parcel or a neighborhood, that would be my concern.
Yeah, I mean, the town has just enacted a vacant home registration code. We just signed a memorandum of understanding with the Schenectady Land Bank to help us move these vacant homes. I mean, a lot of them do have tragedies, and I'm not downplaying the tragedies, but a tragedy doesn't mean that a home has to be destroyed. And most of the time, the land bank is pretty good about working with us. to turn these homes over to someone who's willing to work with the bones and bring them back to life.
And we've got some great success stories of that
Mhm.
happening in Niskayuna.
Yeah.
So to clarify, Laura, I didn't want to in any way say that the tragedy automatically indicates destruction, but I do think that's one of the additional motivating factors, besides the fact that the owner of the property certainly benefits from the proximity to Matthews Key.
That was my request to do a walkthrough because unlike a neighborhood on Upper Union Street or unlike a house that's adjacent to many other homes that are in great demand, like that house is a big house. That's a beautiful brick, old, love it. But I don't know how much it would cost to get it back to a safe state. Yeah,
So-
it could be in great condition inside. It might not
Listen,
look pretty.
and I
but-
can tell you from exterior walkarounds, my assumptions.
Fair enough.
But with all due respect to your concerns, I don't know who facilitates that, if I do that or if you do that. I set you up with the current owner.
We'll decide as a board that
Yeah,
we
you let me
should
know
do
how
that
I
or
can
not,
help
but that was
everybody.
just a suggestion.
I
was
think,
thinking.
I'm sure Mr. McPartland would agree. Sooner or later, we need to get together and do the neighborhood walk, similar to what
Yeah.
you guys did to Mohawk Golf Club. All right, Mr. McPartland?
Oh, I would much enjoy and welcome the opportunity, provided that, we can find a time that works for Mr. Salvani. I understand that you commute when you attend our meetings in
Correct.
person. Is that correct?
Correct.
Well, I appreciate certainly you taking the time to make the trip and wait for as long as you did to address your business here with us. A couple points that I'd just like to make about the discussions thus far. First, I think it's very encouraging that the applicant has proactively contacted some of the homeowners and neighboring residences with a letter. And to that end, I would like to have a process discussion about the soonest time for the town to provide some type of a notice, probably in connection with our recommendation to the town board on a special use permit, I would think. So that would be after, I believe, granting preliminary site plan. But Laura, you can correct me on that. But beyond that, I take it as an encouraging sign. And I also just want to point out that I do believe the residences on Amherst, believe it or not, would be more impacted by this development than the lone remaining residents on Fagan. And having familiarized myself a little bit with the Fagan Avenue addresses, I do also note that the three parcels, 2 homes and 1 vacant parcel, which I believe are under contract contingent upon approval from the town, to convert this approximately 1.25 acres to additional parking for new inventory. They are in themselves sort of isolated from any other residences, because the next address on Fagan Avenue is a commercial operation, Action Commercial Service, as I understand it. And so therefore, I don't share some of the concerns that have already been raised here tonight about altering the character of the neighborhood. It is a unique area of town where we do have that blend of commercial highway use and residential. But I think that's been the reality for these residences for a long time. And so provided that we do not hear something to the contrary during any public hearing or privilege of the floor, my baseline understanding is that this wouldn't be entirely outside of how the character of the neighborhood is currently. And I did also just want to note that we do have a slight modification to the site plan that was provided just to kind of outline and color code some of the current parking uses. I found that very helpful. And I think that my one takeaway thus far is just that, 144 spaces of new inventory display seems like it would be a great coup for the dealership. I do question the practicality of having it located where it is, as opposed to perhaps at a more visible location on State Street, but understanding that we do have the existing constraint of the refurbishment site. I forget what it's called, but the reconditioning use that's currently on the corner of Fagan and State opposite the dealership, which I think as we move through the process, I would like to better understand how the applicant intends to sort of make some improvements. I think make that a little bit more appealing, and perhaps even display some more inventory sort of in the front window, if you will. One other thing, well, two other things that I just wanted to highlight for the board for discussion here. First of all, I do think that it's important to, as we do with all of these types of applications, consider the alternatives. And I know that the applicant did mention in the first meeting that they have a sort of handshake unwritten agreement with a location not in the town of Niskayuna for storage of some vehicles. And I would like to know whether or not the applicant has explored the possibility of formalizing that relationship, or perhaps even fitting up that location to meet some of their parking needs. And secondly, as we move through the process, I would like to understand from a process standpoint, in concert with Laura and the rest of the board, how we sort of, at what point do we evaluate the suitability of the stormwater detention vault that's being proposed? That's a concept of a treatment practice that is new to me. I understand that there is there are other treatment practices like that in the town, I believe at Mansion Square, but certainly I would think it's an alternative treatment practice. It allows for additional impervious surface, but my understanding is that it's typically intended for an area that's sort of a tight space where you need that parking capacity. So I think we should devote some discussion to, the capacity of that detention vault. Is it sufficient as a primary treatment practice? Is it really just secondary to a retention basin and other methods of treating stormwater?
Thanks, Mr. McPartland. Those are great comments. I appreciate that. I don't know if we're to the point for engineering, because obviously we got the process that we have to get through to get far enough along that you can invest in the engineering. I mean, these are, is this your engineer? I'm sorry,
As of right now, it is, yes.
Yeah, okay. But
Can I just touch on a couple of things that Mr.
Sure.
McPartland
No,
said?
please do. Thank you.
So I do agree with you that if this 144 spaces was on State Street, it would be greatly more appealing to me as well. So this is more of a functionality play because the other play doesn't exist. If it did, certainly I would entertain that. As a businessman, frontage on State Street would be fantastic. The reconditioning lot that we were speaking about will not look like that for a lot of reasons. That needs to look like a Matthews location. Whether I'm speaking out of turn or not, we'll find out right now, but I'm going to more than likely have to come back, because as part of a buy-sell, Kia tells us we'll approve this if you bring the dealership up to our image standards. I don't know if you've seen the new Kia dealerships. They're absolutely beautiful. But that's going to be a $3.5 to $5.5 million investment in that property that we're going to have to make. We're not going to do that and then leave the shed across the street on an unpaved gravel lot. So I promise you that will be part of that. But part of this, creating this efficiency helps us with that investment. I mean, we have to be able to sell the units to maintain the business at that level. So we intend to invest a lot in the existing property. This additional piece does certainly complement the property well when it comes to inventory storage. The only other thing I would say is about the property that's down on Morris Road is it's about 1.5 miles away. It is for the size of a Home Depot parking lot. So we don't use the property in its entirety. They lease out spaces of it to other people as well. So one of the reasons we didn't make the play is because we wouldn't need a space that large, and proximity didn't make sense. This is a very good secondary to a State Street expansion.
The
But I
key,
appreciate all of your comments and the way that you're approaching this.
the Kia upgrade standard, are you planning on doing it, keeping that building, the main building intact?
Yes. Yeah. So the standard that you'll see is a complete redesign of the outside, and there's a lot of redesign on the inside.
Hmm.
But if you look at the current Kia buildings, they're absolutely beautiful.
Right, so there's no consideration to demolishing that building and just starting from scratch?
No.
Okay.
Well, not from us. That's not been discussed, nor has it been from Kia.
Just a quick question. I know that I touched on this, but I may have just missed it. The reconditioning center is going to be redone, right?
Yes.
Probably torn down and rebuilt just because of its location or
Depending on what's
shape.
allowed, yes.
Right.
It's in a really bad spot. It's in the middle of the lot.
just out of curiosity, how many cars it's 144 cars proposed in the new lot?
The new lot's 144. There's an additional 40 on the main lot along the frontage of State
Right.
Street.
Just out of curiosity, if there was no structure at the reconditioning lot, how many cars would fit there?
So we've got that slated for 50 used vehicles right now on
Right.
frontage, plus another probably 25 vehicles in process. The 50 used would be stacked. So
Let me ask it a different way.
okay,
If this was a green field, nothing there,
sure.
no layout that you're trying to conform to.
Right.
How many cars would you fit on there?
Off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you. It's not a very big lot. If I had to guess, I
Just-
would say 75. Because you'd go around the outside and then line the middle. I think you could go 20, 20, 20. Actually, probably 15, 15, and 30 would give you your 60, and then maybe 15 along the middle to give you a drive lane around the outside. That is a uneducated guess.
Yeah, that's fair.
But that's a fair assumption, because if you look at the 140, it's about 3/4 of the size. So if you
Yeah.
overlay that,
So the green box that says service vehicles in process reconditioning
Yes.
and the blue box.
I don't know
Right.
if you could pull that up.
Yeah, if you don't mind
Laura.
pulling up the boxes, the colors help me. The blue box, which has got the closest State Street frontage, isn't that green rectangle also part of that property?
Yes.
So I'm
So-
asking the blue and the green combined.
Yeah, and I would venture to say, if you were to lay it out and go around the outside and then across the middle. Let me do this, if this is okay. I'm thinking you could get 15 here, 30 here, 15 here, and then another short road.
Down the middle.
Giving you a drive lane through.
Okay.
I don't want to say it's anything more than.
I was just thinking that maybe you'd have a more specific number if it was your preference.
If it was my.
You mentioned you like the idea of the frontage on State Street, given the nature of your business. I just was thinking that maybe you'd have a more specific number.
No, because the only value to that This is
they don't see it as much. Okay, all right. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So as far as, excuse me, go ahead.
All right. So just for my own education, the reconditioning, is that something, I assume you have like a service center in the main building?
Yes.
Is reconditioning something that could be done at the service center in the main building, or is it something that has to be separate?
Yeah, so it has to be separate for multiple reasons, but the biggest issue that we're running into is the way that we run our business compared to the way that it was run previously. And listen, no disrespect to Mr. Fusillo, he was very successful, but his business model, and I know him personally well, was to sell cars. Just sell all the cars you could, and he used his service departments to sell cars. We use our service department to service customers. So if you look at the average repair order count for the Fusillo Auto Group for that location, it might have been 10 to 12,000 a year. We're pacing 24,000. So we're averaging more than double the amount of customers that he did. We're busting at the seams with customers parking on our lot. So in that shop has 7 lifts in it. It should have 3 times that for the amount of business that goes through there. We use double shifts. Guys work late. I mean, we're doing all of that. So reconditioning, to come back to that, is when I take in a used car and in its quote unquote raw state, it goes into the shop for mechanical work, but then to bring it back to new, as close to new as possible. The exterior is buffed and waxed, the interior shampooed, seats are sometimes taken out. That all happens at the reconditioning center. You don't do that in the middle of your shop. They're not conducive to work together.
Actually, let me just state a couple of things. I'm actually not far away from where Mr. McPartlin is. And Laura, Leslie, it's important to me, low-cost, accessible housing. But the thing that weighs primarily with me on this is the fact that this is a commercial highway zoning. And it gives, right, there is some degrees of freedom that comes from that for what the applicant's proposing here. And so, pardon?
I do understand that, but it's still an affordable neighborhood. Across the street is affordable. And in my mind, it's going to impact those homes too.
Across the street from South Fagan,
Yeah.
there's no homes on that side.
Yeah.
They look at open land. There's one house next to the reconditioning and there's no other houses
Down the street there are.
on South Fagan.
I'm sure there were.
There's the one, there's that one
There's
house.
the one you can see in the picture right there.
Yeah.
But across from the other houses, the other house that would remain, there's nothing. And yeah, the gentleman that lives next to the reconditioning center.
And I do see impact on Amherst, South Amherst.
So I believe we have to work together to define those concerns and then overcome them, which we've committed to.
Yeah, so I at least just wanted to communicate verbally where my tendency is, and given what's been said. However, going back to the question I asked earlier, and Mr. Laflamme, when you talked about the greenfield concept here, and everything you said about busting at the seams from the services perspective, I wouldn't be surprised if Kia might have you look at this entire lot that you would be in possession of if this were to go through, and go for a complete reconfiguration, including moving the building.
Part of the buy sell is their initial serve up, which we haven't brought to you yet because it's in phases, but they've already been to the lot. They want it where it is. We weren't against that. They want the building where it is. And if you look at the grade of the lot, you couldn't move the dealership down the hill. It becomes an instant grade.
Mhm. All right.
Yeah.
That's fine. I mean, you've heard us. We asked kind of like for what long-term plans are. I'm a little tepid in that there's other pieces that are planned out that we're not able to see yet. But
and I wouldn't say they're planned out, but they're required by Kia.
Mhm.
And it's with any auto dealership, and I'm sure they've been here, other auto dealerships in the area where they've had to upgrade their image. It's a process that has to conform. I mean, we can't come in and put pink siding and flashing lights on the building. We understand that. We will bring you Kia's professional specs. They'll design that. I can't even use our engineers for that. They'll give it to us to bring to you, which will happen at a later time.
Yeah, I just don't want to walk into a situation where in the next application, it's a move this building or depart of this building or build another building scenario.
Yeah, and all I can tell you is at this point, that's not been discussed, Mr. Khan. And I don't want to tell you that we couldn't be surprised either. But
Okay.
as of right now, Kia is committed to leaving the building where it is, and making some exterior and interior modifications.
All right, so the $1 million question for me is, and I think I brought this up at the last meeting, there's concerns, obviously, Ms. Gold, and we all have concerns with the Amherst neighborhood backing to this site. They would be included in the notice for the public hearing, would be my assumption. So aren't we ready for a public hearing? Where we get this all out and let's hear what everybody has to say. Mr. McPartlin?
My opinion is I'd like to hear from the public as soon as possible,
There you
and I'd like to discuss what if any action the board sees is necessary before we do that.
Right, but the clock ticks then, and that's why I articulated what I did, right? That
Well, I mean,
Okay.
we can,
We're
You
not-
have flexibility on the site plan
Yeah.
public hearing. You do not have flexibility on the subdivision public hearing.
Yeah.
right. Right, so, we could still try to schedule a walkthrough when you're in the area.
I'll
And
I'll
at
make
least with
myself
Mr.
in the area as
McPartlin,
long as
maybe
I'm
Mr.
in-
Henry can work on setting that up. We can do that in parallel with calling for the public hearing, and could we have the public hearing the next meeting? Is that okay with everybody, or?
Yeah, you can.
I don't have an objection.
What's the date of the next meeting?
Next meeting is February 13th. And, they'll get noticed, and if they don't respond, I know you tried to engage the neighbors, but if they haven't responded, they will get a formal notice from the town, and hopefully we'll come and hear, positive or negative comments that they have so that we can address.
Yeah, and look, you've heard some of our comments in the last applicant. Whatever you can do, even if it's knocking on doors, and see what you can do.
Yeah, I agree. I'm trying to figure out how to, being the new guys, I also don't want to knock on the door when someone was napping. It's tough. So
Understood.
yeah.
Understood. I mean, knocking on doors, quote unquote, right?
Sounds
It's,
like you're doing the right thing. so
Yeah.
far.
yeah,
I do have a copy of the letter if you guys want that.
Yeah, that'd be
I'll take it
great.
for the
we
record.
can put in the record.
It's
Yeah.
not the greatest
Yeah.
printout.
Yeah, we love electronic things. Thank
Yep.
Yeah, that'd be great. All right, is anybody concerned with the public hearing?
No, I just would like, if Mr. McPartlin is going to do a site visit, I'd like to join him, but we have time to do that before the meeting.
So prior to February
Please, thank
13th.
you, Mr. Laflamme.
You're welcome. Mr. McPartlin.
Can we have a brief discussion about the current uses in town of a underground stormwater detention vaults and I guess what alternatives would even be possible?
Was that question for me, Mr. McPartlin?
Yeah,
Well, firstly, I would like to understand, I guess, from your perspective, Mr. Salvani, your thought process in, I understand it maximizes parking space. So is there anything more to the calculus there? That it would seem that the grade in general is going to direct stormwater flow southward. Is that accurate?
I would agree with the grading. Yeah. Flowing
And
south.
so, yeah, I understand that, through engineering and good placement of catchment basins, you can capture quite a bit in a underground detention basin that's an acre in size. So do you have any preliminary figures in terms of capacity or what your excavation depth for such a structure needs to be?
I don't think we're at that point yet where I could provide you that information. I would answer your question with a question, which would be, is there a preference for a different method that you've experienced? Or likewise, have you seen this method not work and you have concerns about it that I could bring back to the guys? So as our engineer and I just caught up today, just to try, we had an engineer that we were working with, but he was working with our real estate development team. And it was kind of a distant relationship, and we want things to move along smoother. That's why Clough Harbor is now, we're transitioning to Clough Harbor. So I'm certainly going to bring Tony up to speed on what's been considered. I don't want to put him on the spot because we don't have that information, but I guess I would say our team has done many of these at a lot of dealerships, and they like that approach. I can't tell you why. I don't know if it's cost beneficial or if this is the most expensive way to do it. I don't know. What I can tell you is I will get you that answer.
Wonderful. Yeah. We don't need much in the way of engineering work at this stage, but understanding your reasoning in selecting that as your treatment practice would be helpful. And, just to kind of answer your question best I can right now, I think in general, the detention vault is a secondary practice because there are some risks involved with maintenance. If maintenance isn't routinely conducted, over time you can have sediment buildup in these things. Also, unless you ensure that any openings are properly maintained, there is a risk of it becoming a breeding ground for insects. Also, it doesn't treat water in the same way that a stormwater detention basin would. There's no natural filtration of pollutants, and so it's a solution that can work, and anything can be engineered. I know Mr. Chairman likes to say that often. So having not had too much firsthand experience with it, I think I just want to front run any concerns that might be raised in the public hearing process with respect to drainage.
We will be glad to help you get ahead of that, just so that we're ahead of it as well. I'd like to know, for my own sake, why I'm asking for that.
Okay. Thank you.
So Laura, do we have those in the town?
Yes.
Jeff, I mean,
Yeah. I would have to see if they are secondary. I think Clark did quite a bit of review on this one, and I think the idea is that it detains and then goes into the catch basin system. But I would say, much more typically, we have the open retention and detention
Right.
basins, and they have the sort of also added benefit to Mr. Patrick McPartland's point of being planted with native species and adding some additional green space to the area. So
I will get you our reasoning and at least high-level engineering thoughts as to how we're going to accomplish the concerns of the board with this method. And I think that leads to another discussion to make sure it's suitable for the project.
Is that something you could have before the public, at least the different options available and why the one chosen is chosen?
This seems like a good time for me to say hello. Just quickly, Tony Stellato with CHA, 40 years there last year actually. And like Vinny says, I'm just getting into the project today, so I don't have a lot of answers yet, but this will be one of the areas that we could do some work on and look at what the previous engineer, you look at their analysis, see what they did. We can provide our thoughts on it. We have used underground galleries a lot. Typically, we would use them in conjunction with some sort of secondary treatment. They would be the primary treatment. The catch basins would typically collect and flow into the underground gallery, and then you would have a vortex unit providing polishing of that before it's released. But there's a lot of different ways to go here, and we'd want to look at all of the options considered and all of the possibilities before we really spoke specifically as to why this is the chosen method, if it is at all. So sure, we can certainly
We'll commit to that.
we can certainly take a look at that and provide some additional guidance.
What level of detail is needed for the public hearing? Do we need to have that worked out for the public hearing, or at least a concept with some, some kind of a statement that here's where we're going, and why, maybe there's other options out there and we're still evaluating kind of thing, or?
I think it's reasonable to think that as design, as we get into final design, other options could pop up. We would do, the detailed engineering a little bit down the road. I think it's safe to say that we're bound to follow the New York State Drainage Design Manual, and we have to achieve the objectives that the state says we have to achieve to the best of our ability. So if there's if there is something particular about the site that drives us toward one solution over another, we would maybe not know that just yet, but I think we could answer general questions at this time.
Okay, just wanted to make sure we're okay for the public hearing.
Yeah.
Right.
It sounds like we are.
Right.
And just the other thing, I'm just looking at it on Google Maps. So there is going to be a few trees that would have to come down.
Mhm.
They look like pretty large growth trees to build a parking lot. I mean, I'm just making a statement of fact that you can verify.
Yeah. Picturing the lot in my
Mhm.
head, there are some trees on the lot. I would agree with that statement.
So I'm just going to say it one more time. I mean,
Okay.
we were just talking in very significant detail about whether the special use permit changes the character of the neighborhood. And this is a significant change to this neighborhood. Essentially, this neighborhood is one house across the street and 3 houses that he's proposing to take 2 down. So you're losing half the homes in the neighborhood to go to a parking lot. And I am just, listen, you guys do what you do. You collect all the data. That's completely fine. I am supportive of that. But I think that having been a planner in Niskuna for a long time and having seen different neighborhoods react differently to public hearings, I think we need to be very sensitive that you are probably not going to have a Ruffner Road neighborhood here coming, right?
No.
And that doesn't mean that the concern shouldn't be considered as very valid. I think that if you don't have a giant show of people, you still need to take the same concerns that you heard from any other special use permit and make sure that you apply them. And I think that's partly because affordable home neighborhoods have different types of needs and demands on their time that may make it more difficult for them to come. So I just want you guys to be sensitive of this is a change in the character of the neighborhood, and you need to evaluate them both equally.
Understood, Laura. I hear what you're saying. I'm maybe hearing it a little bit more than I had originally heard it.
I'm going to respond to what you're saying, Laura, in saying that I firmly believe that the character of the neighborhood cannot be at all equated to Ruffner Road. First of all, this is in a CN district. There are no auto dealerships anywhere near the Country Club Estates.
Yeah,
Neighborhoods.
actually, Patrick, I don't think she was actually making the equation to Ruffner. I mean, clearly,
If I may, I would just like the board and anyone who's interested in a site visit to reserve judgment until you visit the neighborhood and assess for yourself what is the character of the neighborhood. This term is something that we use often. It is not determinative of our recommendation on whether or not to grant a special use permit. It is a factor we must consider. And I believe that any impact to the character of the neighborhood in the direction of slightly more commercial or slightly less treed can be mitigated in some ways. And so we as a board and as planners have a responsibility to balance these factors and work with the applicant to find a solution as they work through this process. That's where I stand on this, and it is my opinion that the character of the neighborhood will not be significantly altered. Yes, taking down trees and paving over grass will change the character of the streetscape. But the neighborhood, in my mind, is already commercial.
And I've been in that neighborhood both in the past and quite recently. I took a drive through about 10 days ago on a Saturday. And I'm sorry, it still feels residential to me. That it's not one of our more affluent neighborhoods doesn't make it less a residential neighborhood. I have a real problem with elitism, and I've seen plenty of it. That it might not be a home to your standards doesn't mean that it's not a viable home. And I've seen some wonderful rehabs done.
Right, but it's, the underlying zoning is not residential though.
Yeah, bottom line, personally, I just want to see the notice go out and, you know, to Laura's point, maybe they don't show up,
Yeah,
maybe
I
they do,
know,
but let's see what happens. Let's take it, let's follow it through the process.
In all honesty, I hope they come because
Me
I
too.
want to know what their concerns are and I want to know that we've addressed them. I want to know that we are maintaining our position as a good neighbor, which will help the neighborhood feel at least on Amherst.
Anybody else? Questions, comments? Sounds like we're going to have a public hearing,
February 13th?
February 13th.
So in anticipation of that meeting and us doing a site visit, you may have discussed this, but can you pre-plan access to those homes that you have under contract?
Yes,
Thank you.
I will work to.
Yeah,
I
see
can't
what you
guarantee
can
it,
do.
but
So I just want to be a little
Yeah.
careful with that because it's not like a zoning board area variance where you guys are going to be looking at like the financials of what it is to take the home down and keep it. That really doesn't fall into the purview of the planning board to decide like how much work would have to go into a home versus like whether you grant a special use permit. So I just want to be really careful with that. Site visit, great. Not sure that you need to go into the homes because I'm not sure how relevant that is to what you guys are reviewing. So
Well,
just be careful.
I'm with you on that one, Laura.
Can you give me
We
some
should be
guide?
going
Just
into the homes.
give me.
Yeah, it wouldn't be normal.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you for guidance on the feasibility of that neighborhood feel that was mentioned and a vacant home for another.
Yeah, but you can
Prolonged period of
evaluate the
time.
neighborhood feel and the
Without
vacant home
doing
from the
that, yeah.
outside.
Yeah.
Like I'm not that comfortable with you guys going in.
No, I
just for the
agree
record.
with Laura on that. I
Yeah.
mean, you know, you have an expertise in that area.
Yeah,
I
I'm
mean,
thinking that way.
Yeah, and you know, but I go in and it looks good. So if the house looks good inside, it shouldn't go or should
That's
go. I
not
mean,
what we
it-
evaluate
yeah,
with the planning
exactly.
board, though.
No, that's not what I'm looking at.
That's what I'm saying. I agree.
so to that end, we could do this as soon as tomorrow. I'm in town tomorrow. If we wanted to walk the street together and have that conversation and walk around the properties,
Well, it's all around Mr. McPartlin's
That-
schedule.
well,
He's the
and-
primary.
we can talk about if tomorrow doesn't work, but if walking around the outside, then the board has a different feel. And maybe if Laura says, you know, based on this, I do want to see the insides. And from what I'm hearing, that's not going to happen.
No,
You
not
don't
from
wanna
Laura.
see
Right.
the
So,
inside.
so if we're directed to then gain access, we'll work to do that. But if we want to start at the outside, walk the street, get the feel of what everyone's talking about, I'd be willing to make that happen as soon as possible.
You know, they've been going to what appears to be the entrance from the street. I don't know that our folks should be roaming around on the property either.
I mean, listen, I think it would be okay if the property owner said, yeah, it's okay for us to come on the property. I think it'd be okay to look and see like what, you know, what you guys looked at the Mohawk Club. Is the grass soggy? Like, are there swales in the back? Like, what do the backyards in Amherst look like as opposed to here? Like, I think it's okay to walk around. I don't think that you need to
Well,
go into
I
the
agree.
home.
But you said with the owner's permission.
And
that's
with
my
the owner's
sticking point.
permission, yeah.
Well,
You guys
and
would never
Without that, I don't think we
to
should go
assist
on.
with that, between the adjacent part of our property and the street, it's wide open. I mean, you can see a lot other than wanting to feel what's under your feet. We could walk Fagan and have that conversation initially and then, go from there.
Or even drive slowly, you can gather a lot.
We've all, I don't know, we've all driven, I mean, My question was twofold. Do we have permission? Because it's not yours,
Correct.
but I was extending it to within for other personal reasons of, I say personal, I can't help but think about any property's likelihood of being kept as it was intended to be. And that's what I was trying to better assess. But I'm going to assess it from the outside,
Yes.
and it's probably going to hurt the situation.
But I mean, Elena can jump in here, you guys. I really don't think that the condition of the home should necessarily be a factor of the special use permit granting.
To that argument,
Agreed.
doesn't zoning drive? Step one, I'm here because it's zoned for that, correct?
Yeah, we had that conversation last time. You have the right to be here.
Correct.
But the planning board also has a right to review the conditions and the character of the neighborhood and the things that go into them granting a special use permit.
Do you know what the square footage of that house is?
I don't.
Okay.
Neither home do I know the square footage of.
So, Mr. McPartland, are you available tomorrow?
Unfortunately, I have a narrow window of availability tomorrow. I could meet after business hours.
Unfortunately, it'd probably be dark. It might not be
It
beneficial.
would be dark and I need to be back in
Yeah.
Syracuse.
So let's work
tomorrow night.
through the planning officer, Mr. Henry, if you don't mind, trying to establish a time with Mr. McPartland being the primary person that really needs to be there. And then if the other board members are available within reason, and we'll join in.
I can share my contact information with, actually, Laura, you have my email, I think. I've been copied on some emails. So Mr. McPartland, if you want to email me with your availability, I can tell you the rest of this week I'll be out of the state. We'll be down in Dallas. Just a plug. Rob Matthews was nominated for Dealer of the Year. So he's the New York State Times Dealer of the Year. And he's potentially going to receive national recognition on Friday. So we're traveling down to Texas in hopes of coming back with that recognition. I'll be back on Sunday. So I could be back in this market next week if that works for you.
Yes, I think I'm confident we can find a time then. And in the meantime, I'll just reiterate my encouragement to anyone interested to just take a drive by. Please, just head southbound on State Street, turn right onto Amherst Ave, turn left onto Albany Street, a main thoroughfare, one that divides any semblance of a feel of a neighborhood. And then turn left onto Fagan Avenue South and follow that northward towards State Street. And you'll have a pretty good idea of this small 2-block neighborhood that we're dealing with. And I will also reiterate what I said at the beginning, which is that I do believe that the reconditioning uses that are currently being occurring on the State Street frontage I'll go further as to say that might be more appropriate sort of a little further removed from State Street. And, I'm not at all married to the proposed layout or the requested number of parking spaces here. I feel like we still have some work to do in terms of understanding what is the optimal arrangement of parking and other uses I believe that we should consider the reconditioning site in play in terms of reconfiguration. I think if the applicant is considering a treatment practice such as the underground stormwater retention basin, my understanding is, from a cost perspective, we're talking about something considerable enough where you could also consider moving your reconditioning site. Those are alternatives, which I think I would like to have confidence that were fully explored, and also formalizing the arrangement that you have that is sort of a handshake arrangement with Morris Road. Although Mr. Salvani did already indicate that it sounds like there's multiple parties involved, and you would need to be the sole party, the sole tenant, and that's more capacity than you need, and also it's not as practical being over a mile drive away. So I understand that, but also that you've got a lot of different uses for your parking here, and you're always, as an auto dealer, kind of playing musical chairs or musical vehicles, if you will, moving things around. So it's sort of, that is sort of the nature of the beast to a certain degree.
Undeniably.
Anybody else? Okay. I think we're all set. And so you'll get the contact information in planning office and set up a site visit with Mr. McPartland, and we'll call for a public hearing.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. I am looking forward to working with everybody here.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you for coming. I see. Now, next on the agenda, are you guys East Street? Or is East Street online tonight?
We actually told them they didn't need to come because
Okay.
they had just received the denial.
Did they? Okay.
And so really the only updates to your packets from what they discussed before was that they broke down the inside. So you probably saw, I
Yeah.
can bring it up.
Well, I was going to suggest we hold on that and bring the next applicant up, and then we'll go back to that. Just skip that.
Oh, yeah, because
All right.
I don't know that.
Yeah,
there's
so we'll
really-
go right to 20, what's next?
Laura here.
Oh, you are, sons. We do have somebody. Okay, that's why I was making sure. All right, so Laura was summarizing what you submitted regarding the 31 East Street, and basically was a sketch of a floor plan. And let's see what else is new. That's pretty much it, right?
Yeah, so that, per our request, they broke down the inside so that we could understand what use was changing. And then Clark was able to write a denial based on the square footage of the office area and the bathroom. So that denial has gone to them. They have submitted an appeal, and they would be able to go on to the February meeting.
Did they submit the paperwork already?
I think we got it yesterday, right, Clark? No, not yesterday. That was Sunday. Friday.
Yes,
All right, so you have the paperwork. Will we be seeing that also?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, because we haven't seen, that was included in the packet.
We didn't have it.
Oh, you didn't have it in time. Okay, so we should see that to see what your position is. And I think the previous agenda statement had some details on the number of employees, number of vehicles. Am I mistaken, or is that going to be, is that included?
that has been submitted.
Okay, it's just not in this packet this week. I think it was last.
No.
And
And I did notice on our denial that it said garbage, but it is just dry garbage. It isn't smelly waste garbage.
it's just construction debris or leftovers.
Yeah.
Yep, solid.
Dry cement,
Solid.
cement bags, that type of waste garbage.
All right, so I think, is there anything else we can talk about tonight, or any other questions for this applicant? Not trying to rush you along, but until we see your submittal, and then we'll take a look at
Right.
that. And I guess we'll have to
Okay.
have one more meeting and have a discussion on that.
Yeah, I mean, because you only have one more meeting, I would recommend if it's kind of an interesting use variance, I guess. It's been dry storage for a really long time. So the proposal, the reason that it would have to go for use variance is for the office space.
Mm-hmm.
I guess maybe it's worthwhile because their zoning board application is going to weigh, the financials and stuff, but it may be worth it for you guys to just explore how you feel about, if that's going to impact the neighborhood, any questions you have to the neighborhood on the special use permit. I mean, on the use variance, not interchangeable.
Yeah, I'm concerned though, because one of the things I can't prove is financial.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I guess sometimes we recommend that you just have, your own advocate, attorney, land use specialist person look at that application for you. You can certainly amend it prior to the zoning board meeting, but you will have to at least show that there's a reason that it can't continue to stay dry storage. And you'd have to have, I think, one of your advocates look at that for you.
Okay, all right. Because the other thing I did on there is now that they're using it as a mechanic's garage, they're using it to restore vehicles. and they've got somebody there full time. One of the things I used is by us putting in the bathroom, it would be, right now they don't have a bathroom there and they're there a regular work day. So they're using bushes outside. So this would be an improvement for the town, having the bathroom in there.
Yeah, one of the things that's like important to me is, it's storage and, the hours of operation, the impact to neighborhood, what type of noise you generate, how many vehicles are parked, how many vehicles are stored from a planning. That's what, for me is what's important. If it turns out it's
Okay.
less intense than what has historically been there, even though if you've expanded to include bathrooms and, administrative personnel or sales or whatever, if it's,
Okay.
if it's been beneficial, I'm talking from a planning standpoint, that's what's important,
Mhm. Okay, great.
All right.
All right,
So any
thank
more
you.
information you have, questions like that may come up too with the zoning board of appeals. So, again, details on number of employees, all that laid out clearly. Amount of vehicles you park, amount of vehicles that you use support the business that will be located there. All those things will be very helpful.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay. All right. And we'll make a
All right.
recommendation. When are we talking about for the zoning board of appeals, the actual date for this to be heard?
That's my calendar, but it would be like a week or so after you guys take a recommendation.
So it would be the February meeting? Is that, or it'd be March?
Well,
No, Laura, I think it's actually just a couple days.
Yeah, I
I think
just
if
see
the
that,
next
Clerk,
meeting
yeah.
is the 13th, it might be the 15th.
yeah, the zoning board meeting in February is the 15th. So I guess
Great.
we could discuss with the applicant. That's a really quick turnaround on a use variance, but I think that they have a timeline that's short because of their sale contract.
So,
Is that correct?
Yes, we're trying to get this through so we can continue with sale or dump the sale.
right.
Yeah, so as long as that's okay with you guys, you would make a recommendation on the use variance on the 13th and they would take action on it on the 15th.
All right. It's okay with me.
Great.
But again, it'd be nice to have a project lead. We're trying to find one here to reach out and discuss these things and help with the recommendation. So if somebody would, again, like to do that, I'd appreciate it.
You got someone today.
Well, Mr. Dier
Yeah.
was, but he had to recuse himself because of an affiliation with the contractor. So that's what happened there. And I put that out in an email today. So we're still looking for somebody. Yes.
Yeah, I'll take it.
All right, Mr. Laflamme. So if you have any questions, when you take a look, get the contact information for the applicant, and so that you're comfortable with, making a recommendation or, help him make a
For the
recommendation
next.
for the next meeting. Okay?
Okay, great.
All right, thank you, Mr. Laflamme. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And of course, we'll all be involved, but it's nice to have somebody on point, all right? All right, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
And we'll see you at the next meeting, 13th.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
All right. Sorry, gentlemen. Thank you. I appreciate your patience tonight. As you can see, it's been an interesting evening. And this is 1760 Union Street site plan application for a tenant change to a dental office. And we've obviously had the agenda statement, so we know what you're up to over there.
Thank you for hearing us tonight. Danny Sanders, Harris Sanders Architects in Albany, and Lou Blarno, also representing Dr. Sani, who's purchased the building at 1760 Union. So essentially, the project will be to renovate the Ortho New York space into a pediatric dentistry space. And with that, Ortho New York and Caldwell Banker will no longer be in the building, and the doctor will be taking over that portion, whereas the ARC will be maintaining their space of about 3,300 square feet. The doctor will be taking the remaining 9,420, and the building will be fully occupied once again. So as far as the project goes, we're here for review, and we understand that there's a shortage of parking spaces based on the need. Previously, the need was for 64 spaces, where there's an actual number of 60 in the lot. And now the need will be 70 spaces, based on the difference in square footage calculations between the dental office being medical versus the Coldwell Banker space, as noted on your chart, being general office. So the ratios change. Other than that, the two spaces are ready to be renovated. Coldwell Banker being out of there shortly, and Ortho New York already. And the plan is to move forward in the next couple months, demolition first, interior demolition, and then proceeding with construction following that.
Right.
We understand we would have to probably go for a variance for the parking. If that's the process, we're here tonight to present the project and request your assistance of how to move forward and what the next steps are.
And that was my main question. Is there waiver capability at this location?
So there's waiver capability if you can show that you can build the 6 spaces. You don't have to build them, but you'd have to show that they could be built. When Clark and I initially looked at this site, we didn't identify that you could build them. Although over the weekend when I was looking at it, I don't know if there's a reason, and you don't have to build them, but I was wondering if it's possible. You have these.
Those are parallel.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's a reason
About
that
56 feet
you can't.
for the lot,
Yeah.
and we would normally need about 60.
Oh,
So we're 4 feet short officially. If each space would be 18.
if you were to flip them and put them along this line here, along the property line,
If we would extend the pavement towards the property line,
yeah.
that's a possibility.
Because this is what I'm saying is you don't actually have to build them, but you have to
Just
show
show
that you could fit them.
Within the parameters of the property line.
Yeah, unless there's some reason that you actually can't fit them.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
We can document that because basically what you have is 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 spaces. So we get an additional 5. So we'd still be, because there's 4 now on the parallel. So if you did 9 on the other side, you'd have a difference of 5. So
Yeah. Well, then see if you could fit one, I don't know, somewhere else.
is there any credit for on-street?
No.
Okay, so just checking. And we can look at it as exhaustively as we can, but it may be a little difficult to get that extra space, considering officially, we would need 8.
Well, I'd have to look it up. Does the code specifically say that it has to be available to be banked for the waiver, to execute waiver
I
capability?
think it does,
Like-
because do you remember just on Route 7, we had them come up with that parking lot at the front of the building just so that they can meet code. We don't ever expect them to actually have to build it, but so that we'd be able to do the waiver. Otherwise, the step is the zoning board.
But it sounds, so if that's the case, it sounds like you can't get there anyway, right?
Not in that portion of the lot, and I'm not sure if there's anything towards Union that we could, but I don't think so, because based on the access coming in from Union is pretty tight. You're getting
Right.
that first space right away.
So where I'm going with this, if it looks like you can't do it, if you can only come up with some of them, and we don't have the authority to grant you a waiver without the bank parking, then you're going to have to go to ZBA no matter what. Right?
Understood.
And if you're going to go to ZBA, if time is of the essence for your project, we need to also move along on this. So you could spend your time trying to come up with bank parking. If it's not there, you're still going to end up with ZBA.
And I'm concerned your actually needs some more parking. Just based on the number of hygienist space I saw and that kind of thing.
Understood.
Have you laid out the, 100% utilization of the proposal, the number of employees, how many parking spots are left for clients?
That I don't recall, have we done the breakdown with employees versus,
So-
employees parking?
So where that
Because
leads
it's
is,
really just based on square footage, according to what we went over with Clark. So I
right,
didn't know-
square footage for our thing, but the real issue is, does it work for you?
Right.
So even if the ZBA were to say, okay, we'll give you a variance for 8 parking spots, does the site work? That's the question, right? So, obviously you don't want to have a business where, they're coming for their appointment and they can't park, to Ms. Gold's
What
comment.
we would need probably to do is check on ARC.
Yeah.
If we check on what the actual utilization of ARC is, because even though they have a certain square footage requirement of 16, which won't change for their cars, maybe they only need 10.
Well, that's important. And if you end up to ZBA, that's important also, right? I mean,
Yeah,
that
buses
was-
again, and their clients are not driving
Yeah.
in general.
But that would be your base, information you would provide to the zoning board of appeals of why you're okay, right?
Right.
If we don't have the waiver capability because you don't have enough for the bank parking. So you should, lay that out no matter what, because obviously you don't want to have a business where people come and there's no place to park because they'll be leaving and going somewhere else, right?
If you're talking kids, the parents aren't can walk back. So I'm a little extra concerned about that account.
The doctor also has other practices that we could check on, ratio of operatories and parking, and look at the one in
Yeah.
Glens Falls that he has.
So,
So we can do
Thank
that
you.
as a little backup.
yeah, what is your timetable?
That's pretty much what we're looking for first, is to be able to do the interior demolition. We understand there's going to be another hearing for this board, I believe. So we anticipated that. Would they want to start in February or March, I assume, for next week?
But they wouldn't be able to do it. They wouldn't be able to get a building permit because this is a change of tenant. So you're
Right.
you're kind of stuck here, right?
Yeah, we're gonna proceed on our end for construction documents during the next 4 weeks,
Yeah.
3-4 weeks, and put it together in anticipation of getting variance and anticipation a little bit at risk, but we feel that that's still
Yeah.
worth it if we can work.
Yeah, and that's why I think for me, if you come in here and say, we, even though, it says 70, we're fine with 58 spots and here's why, that's what's important to us.
Right.
And truthfully, of course, I mean, if it's not going to work, and you want it to work, you want to be successful. That's all I can keep saying. And then, and then we will make a recommendation to the zoning board of appeals and for the area variance. They don't have to take our recommendation. They have different criteria, but they'll utilize that same information in their decision process, I'm sure.
So if I may, would you be making the recommendation prior to your next meeting so that it's Wednesday?
Well, the only time we could make our recommendation, if it was, again, of the essence, time of the essence, would be the next meeting, just like with the previous applicant. But that would require you to get in that information of the parking needs ahead of that next meeting. Again, here's the spots and here's why I don't have any place to bank, or if I bank, I can only get 2, which is, better than none, I guess, but maybe we can waive 2 parking spots and decrease the variance required potentially. Would you come on up, please? Because we're recording and broadcasting also.
The owner already has that information.
Yeah.
We have a 12,000 square foot facility for him up in Queensbury. So he's got firsthand
Yeah,
information
good.
on what he needs for parking.
All right.
He owns the whole building, just
Right.
like, eventually, he'll probably own this whole building.
Because if it's okay with everybody, we can try to help you out. If you can get that information in, we can put you down tentatively for a recommendation to the zoning board of appeals at the next meeting. That'll keep it moving along quicker. There'll still be some site plan, assuming that the zoning board of appeals grants the area variance. We still want to come through, how's the access to the site, the condition of the parking lot? Is there an opportunity to plant any trees along Union Street to help spice up that neighborhood, which we've been trying to do with each project that comes along, but that's.
This
but it's-
building is 15 years old? Okay, and all of that's in place?
Yeah.
We don't intend to change anything?
Yeah,
on
we'll
that.
we'll take a look to see if there's any, thing that's, hasn't been maintained by somebody,
well, yeah.
that kind of thing. That's what we do, all right?
Yep, and we're going through it right now.
Okay.
Okay, anything that's maintenance items, okay, we're going to be taking care of.
And it's, it's permitted and, it's just that because of the parking requirements, it falls short. Otherwise, we'd have a simpler job. It'd be easier for you also.
There's no construction activity currently going on at the building?
Construction activity?
Nothing?
I'm taking down ceiling tile.
Okay.
Okay, we have permission to do that, okay, through the building department, I think.
We do have a formal demolition plan that we're going to be applying for a permit with the building department interior.
Because there was activity there last week.
They did have a building permit
Do they have a
for
permit?
something, but I
Okay.
did tell them that the demolition has to stop prior to tenant change at this point going forward. I can't remember who I don't know that it was one of you two. But last week they were approved. Now anything
Well,
associated.
The real estate company's moving out of there.
Okay, yeah,
Could've been
that
that.
may be what it is.
Yeah, that's what it is. Okay. Yeah, I've had a project manager in and out of there now for a month. Okay, and he's the only one that's been there, so.
Right.
He's an old timer like me, so he's not doing much.
That sounds good, and we'll, yeah, and then based on our recommendation, and then granting area variance, we'll get through the final details of the site plan. And again, if you proceed, with design at your own risk, of course, All right,
Okay, you've already got the design together. Right?
Yeah.
We're in good shape.
good.
Okay.
All right, is
Yeah,
there
we
anything
got
else from the
right back
board?
to-
Questions, concerns? Again, we'll need a project person here also to help with the recommendation to the zoning board of appeals on this one also.
I can take this one.
All right, there we go. Making progress tonight. All right, and thanks for hanging out with us tonight. We know it was a tough agenda tonight, but we appreciate it. All right. Anything under reports, Mr. Henry or Ms. Robertson?
I don't have anything unless you have specific questions.
I guess we got to ask the standard question that usually gets asked. Anything from the legal department regarding any of the Article 78s? Nothing, huh?
Nothing.
Oh, boy. Okay. Any questions at all of the planning department from the board? No? Anything under commission business anybody would like to share? No? I know it's been a long night. I
Don't we
appreciate-
have an intro, Laura?
Well,
Yeah, you did at the beginning of the meeting, but Mr. Drescher? Yep.
Yeah, not just with the gentleman to the,
oh yeah, this is Jack Connolly. He's
Oh, you know him?
our master's in planning student that is working as an intern in my department.
oh, okay.
And so he's the one that's actually working on the minutes for us right now because Gene left us.
Right.
And he's helping a lot with the comprehensive plan.
And I met Jack, so I met him at the walk, but I don't think everyone else got him.
I'm sorry. I think
So welcome aboard, Jack.
Thank you, guys.
Joseph.
Thanks for
Joseph.
working on the minutes. So it's-
Yeah,
you know
I'm
how much
trying my
fun they
best.
are.
We're getting through it.
They're a blast.
This next one might be a little longer, but
Okay.
Good luck.
You can just log into what is it, Chat GP or whatever it's called.
yeah, it'll be extensive. We'll get through it.
Okay. Anything else, anybody? All right, again, thanks. It's a long night. Motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Khan, second.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, planning office, and
Thanks, Clark. Thanks, Patrick.
thanks, Patrick, Clark. Good night.